Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet Ian Griffin, talking football already.
Yes, we're talking football, but I don't think we're going to talk football on this.
Hey, that's some misinformation.
That is misinformation.
It is. We're not talking football.
So, Coach, today I think since we're out here at the Jump Talking, beautiful country today.
Wish we could turn this around and just show you one time, but that sure would mess everything.
Yes, it would. So we're going to talk about it, misinformation and disinformation. And misinformation is where something's misled, and it might not have been intentional, but disinformation, and I'll clarify it, is when it is intentional. And disinformation, I hate to say it, just throw it out there. The military uses that sometimes, like with troop numbers. We did it in World War II, really, with disinformation when we sit there and act like we had a whole corps of army sitting on the east coast of England with Patton's army, and they were all balloons and all this other stuff, and all that. So that's disinformation. But people use it politically for vendettive reasons. So I just started out kind of like that there, Coach.
Sure. And and as a history teacher, some of the things that we talk about, we don't use the word misinformation. It's kind of like a PR word now. Public relations, misinformation. When we teach it in history, we use the word propaganda, and we use that word, and we use it a lot. And it goes back to one of the first things that we teach when we're teaching younger people about propaganda and what it was to the early colonies. Whenever we had the British soldiers, having all these taxes, and they were actually on our land, and we didn't want them here, and before we had the Quarterling Act and all that, we had a Boston Massacre. And it was literally the propaganda that came from that started the push for a revolution. Because we had a massacre. The word massacre usually means a whole lot of people dying. I don't know if you remember how many people died that day. 5. And what had happened was Paul Revere was the editor of the newspaper, and he printed the picture of the shooting and made the whole propaganda look like they were shooting a bunch of innocent people. The British soldiers were. They even had dogs down below, and they had over one of the businesses, which was a made-up business called the Butcher Shop. And make it look these guys were just butchering the soldiers. And then John Adams came in as an attorney and got the guys off because it was all a defense. I mean, the defense was that they were defending themselves. But propaganda's been a part of this country, been a part of a lot of things going on for a number of years. But right now, the misinformation that we have out is what I call propaganda on steroids.
It's on steroids and crack cocaine and about 5 other things. And I'll give you a couple of examples, and I'll give you one that's a few years back, and I'll give you some that are just within the last few months. One a few years back is a little thing called, happened around 9/11, Benghazi. And, we lost some people that day, and we were told by high-ranking officials in the federal government, Secretary of State, former Hillary Clinton, said this was all caused because they saw a Western-style video. Although she sent an email that night to her daughter saying, yeah, it wasn't a video, we know that. We're just telling the American people that because they'll believe anything I tell them as long as we have the Clinton Foundation. So she lied to us. It was purposely disinformation, knowing darn well that didn't cause anything. And they stuck to the guns on it, I don't understand that. I don't know why we needed to lie on that. This wasn't like troop strength. This wasn't like we're maneuvering a brigade over in Poland to set up in case the Russians invade something. It wasn't nothing like that. It was just, hey, y'all fumbled and you didn't want to admit it.
Right.
It was political at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's not just on the Republican side that we're saying that against Democrats. I mean, just look at the misinformation with Obama and his birth certificate.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this was ridiculous. If you really look back and think about it, it wasn't done because we wanted to find out the true facts. What we wanted to do is make someone look like they were not an American. He should not be holding the office that he was elected for. Anything we could do to make the person look bad. And, that kind of misinformation, we've used that before, not just in our country. I mean, the CIA and the FBI use it a lot, especially in the late 50s and the early 60s when we had the Cold War going on. It was nothing but misinformation and propaganda and leaflets dropped all over the world with information that was misinformation.
Yep.
But now we're having it not just from, government entities trying to win a war or get a country on our side. we're doing it on social media, and we're doing it on regular media. We're doing it on CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and
so
I mean, it's gotten crazy.
So, Coach, I'll give an example on the that happened on the Republican side is when President Obama came out. I happened to be in Afghanistan at the time, and I've told this story once before, but he came out and said, "Hey, we're going to draw the troop strength down, and we're going to close the dining facilities down over there, half of them, or so many of them." I got messages back from my hometown saying, "Hey, Ian, what's going on over there? They're not feeding soldiers hot meals anymore." And it's true. We stopped doing 3 hots a day. But if you look throughout history, Desert Storm, Bosnia's, and everything else, we never fed 3 hot meals a day. We did that because that's a morale boost, but we never did that before. They may get 1 hot a day. They go get the hot in the morning, and they pick up 2 MREs. Or they may get issued 3 days worth of MREs, and that's what they lived off of. So what was going on was we were downsizing dinosaurs so we could kind of get out of there, hopefully, and by doing that that was just an easy target. But what Fox News ran and that President Obama don't care about troops. Well, that might be a true statement too, but that wasn't a statement toward that. That was just complete misinformation, which was actually just twisting some things and running with it and thinking that's it. So
the agendas that the networks have, the major networks, and even Breitbart or Daily Wire or pop culture online or whatever, the agendas matter. And if you're going to read something about a certain topic that comes out with, let's say, with Trump with hookers, then if you're getting your only source from MSNBC on that, you're going to get a left-leaning, anti-Trump view. And if you were to take the same information and you were going to go to Fox News, you're going to get a conservative, pro-Trump view. But where do we get our real information now has become the misinformation capital of forever, of all time, is social media. And now our media has become that we get as, not we, but as the new generation of people, and we're included in that, is we're getting more of our information and misinformation from social media, where every single person right now in the political climate that we have has an agenda. Every single person that posts anything about politics is either anti-Trump or pro-Trump.
So Coach, I will say social media is a big driver, but then there's another caveat to that you have the information or misinformation, and then you have elected officials that feel compelled that they either have to endorse or not endorse. And they don't endorse on facts. And I'm going to read a good example. They don't endorse on facts. They endorse on political agenda. And so I know everybody's heard this little thing called the Squad, and I think that's an inappropriate title for those 4 individuals, congresswomen that are on the Democratic side. But Congresswoman Presley from Massachusetts on Twitter, social media, came out and said after the Wisconsin incident, a 17-year-old white supremacist domestic terrorist drove cross state lines with an AR-15, shot and killed 2 people who had assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of black lives.
Wow.
Okay, so in the Army, we have this thing is report quickly, but we know that might not be true because after we get more feedback from things, we might find out the real facts. So at first, that's misinformation. But then it became disinformation because she stuck to her guns after the facts came out that he didn't cross state lines with AR-15. Oh, I'm sorry. He was on the suburb of Chicago within 20 miles of there, so it was kind of like a district of it in some shape or form or fashion. So let's don't make it like he hiked all the way across the United States of America to go do this.
Right there with the intent only to murder.
And there is absolutely zero evidence of him being any form of a white supremacist whatsoever.
Except that he's white.
Except that he is white. And just because you're white don't mean you have to be a supremacist. So, and then the fact that he shot and killed 2 people, that did happen, but they assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of black lives. When one of them had a gun and one of them fired, I don't know if they were assembling to do any of that, to be honest. Their actions make me choose differently in that assumption. So this is the question I got. This congresswoman right here, who is from Massachusetts and not from Chicago, not from Illinois, not from Wisconsin. Since you have these facts and you feel that you need to validate it on Twitter, why didn't you go to the FBI? Is my question. Because you're smarter than all of us, because you endorse this only because it fit your political agenda. Yeah. And it just showed that you're I won't say names to people, but it shows that you're less knowledgeable in what you portray yourself.
Yeah, when politics become more than facts and become more than honesty, then we've got a problem. There are so many things going on right now in our country with misinformation. It doesn't matter that President Trump will sign an anti-crime bill or an anti-prison reform, or excuse me, a prison reform bill. Those are great things. I don't care who's president. If JFK was president, if Reagan was president, if Clinton was president, or Trump's president, that's great things. But they can't say it. And so they have to say, well, he's really not for them. He just did that because he's trying to pick up the black vote. I don't get that every single thing someone does, it can't be for the real thing that I want to help somebody.
Yeah. This is the other issue I have with misinformation and disinformation, is once facts have evolved and come back. Why can't you come back and just talk about it?
And that's why
instead of sticking to your old guns. The Breonna Taylor case. She was asleep in her bed when everything happened. She was shot when she was asleep in bed. No, she wasn't. She was standing in the hallway next to her boyfriend who shot first.
Have you seen?
And nobody has come back.
Did you actually see? And I hate to interrupt you, but did you actually see? And you can go online and look at yourself. Did you actually see the interrogation of her boyfriend?
No.
You need to, because he sits there and says that we are in a bedroom. We hear knocking on the door, banging on the door. We both get up. We both go. They're banging again. We're standing side by side in the hallway when they bust through the door, and I shoot at the door.
In one of the debates, and I forgot which one it was, they even said she was still asleep in her bed when it happened.
Right, because
even
that's
in one
misinformation.
Of the debates. And I'm like, let's get over that. We've evolved. That is disinformation at that point in time. And now, if it was at the very first, it would be misinformation because we really didn't know. But you using it for your advantage is disinformation.
When Ferguson happened with Michael Brown, and that came out, hands up, hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't. His hands were in the air when he was shot. All they had was a video, and they had people's, people talking in the street, and they talked to a few of them. They hadn't had an investigation yet. They went down there about to burn the city down, and that was the whole narrative. Once they did the investigation and realized not only did Michael Brown rob the store, but he also was trying to take the gun, and he hit the officer in the car, and then he rushed back to the car when he was telling, no, it can't happen. It's got to be lying police. It's got to be lying this. Well, then when the witnesses started saying it, they still said, well, some did, some didn't. Well, then they had the Justice Department. Obama's black. They had Eric Holder, which is black, investigated, came back and said, look, this was not what was said. This happened the way the officer said it. And they still didn't come back and clarify. To this day, people will wear hands up, don't shoot like it really happened.
So, Coach, I'm going to say this here, and I'll probably get a lot of kickback from this, and I'll just say it how it is. Remember when President Obama said, hey, and I don't remember if it was...
It was Trayvon. I was like, what you going to say?
Trayvon. When he said, I could see that as being maybe my son.
If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, and we all understood what the president was saying. We all emphasized for that.
Right.
But President Obama, in his good faith and good heart, in that moment, did something that no other president had done. He stepped from the president's office and went and handled a local matter. And that started the divide. Because a president wouldn't even comment on those things.
Right.
A president would comment on 911 because it happened to the whole country. A president would not comment on a state and local matter.
And if they did comment, it was more to the fact that, you know what, the
local
people are doing it. They're going to get to the bottom of it. We're here, and if they need help, type thing. But there is and PBS and Frontline is not a conservative station.
Right.
But they did a great 2-part video that's on YouTube, and you can look it up. It's called America's Divide. And the first part 1, is Obama's presidency. And part 2 is the end of Obama's presidency with Trump getting elected and into his first. And where this divide first started, and that's one of the key points of the moderator that's talking about it, is when the Trayvon Martin thing happened and Obama made it where, no one's saying you can't speak about it, but when you make it
When he inserted himself.
Inserted himself into it. That
Yes.
if I had before any investigation was done,
Yes.
they had even, most people nowadays, and they should always do this, if there's an investigation, we can't talk about it until the investigation is over. That's all he had to do. He could say, you know what, we don't want people rioting. We do understand people are upset. Yes, go take care of your First Amendment right. Go protest peacefully. We've had a long history of police brutality. You can even say that. But when you say this person looks like me or then you're inserting yourself into it without any facts.
When you undermined the local law enforcement and you took over at that point.
And what I was getting to is this real quick when I'll finish is when you do that, no matter if it's right or wrong, what happened to Trayvon Martin, if it was right or wrong, if the verdict doesn't come of that person getting convicted, then you're stoking that fire and those flames. Same thing with Michael Brown. If you don't get what that they think that the president of the United States even thinks, then you stoke it up and make it even hotter. When if you could say, you know what, it's terrible. I hate this for his family. I hate this for the town. I hate this for the community. Heck, I hate it for the country. But you know what? We're going to wait. That's what we have in America is we have a due process, and we're going to wait until this is done. And at that point in time, my office or myself will make a comment on it. But right now, it's not the time.
So I'll give you a second point. This has nothing to do with race whatsoever, where the President Obama inserted himself in, and it discredited a whole bunch of stuff. And that is the Bergdahl case. When he brought that family in front of the White House and put up there and said, hey, we brought your son home, the deserter that they traded 5 terrorists for, I looked at my wife and I go, they're never going to be able to do anything significant with Bergdahl now. He just exonerated any process that the military will go through a court-martial as they're supposed to.
And what is that disinformation or misinformation right there from the president?
That was deliberate.
Absolutely.
That was deliberate. That was disinformation. But he condoned it inadvertently. That might not have been his intent.
Right.
It just showed that, President Obama wasn't a senator long. Let's face the fact. And it showed some novice in his political manship in that. And he displayed that. But both of them cost us significantly. It cost us in racial tensions, and it cost us also in this here.
And that's one of the things where you have to be so careful with misinformation. Now, we're gullible people because we want to be right. We want to get on Facebook and say, I told you this person's good or this person's bad. But what you don't realize is the misinformation that you give today, which could be possibly an argument winner for you today, especially from a presidential standpoint or somebody in that much power, they don't understand what could come out of that. And when you say racial tensions got worse after Trayvon, it got worse after Michael Brown and stuff. But in the end, both those went through the American process. They went through the judicial system. You can agree or disagree with it. But if nothing was said prior to that and at the end of it was said, it would be considered different from a stoking the flame standpoint from both sides if you just let it play itself out before you comment and do that. The second thing that we're talking about misinformation is if you're going to put information out that you know is false for political gain.
Benghazi.
Exactly. Then how in the world is that positive for the country?
Exactly. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Instead of letting things play out, Coach, George H. Bush got chastised and criticized for this. But it shows the demeanor of a president prior and the demeanor of the president that changed with President Obama. He was asked, hey, the economy's in the tank. What are you going to do about it? And he looked at the media and said, it's the economy. And George H. Bush, was very astute in the economy. And he goes, the economy will handle itself. The president, I don't dip my hands in that. I let it play out, and it will evolve, and it will correct itself automatically, which economy normally does if you just leave it alone. But even though that's not racial, but he had a hands-off approach because he was too busy being the president instead of putting his hands down in the economy. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, instead of putting your hands in a state matter that the state officials are the ones that's going to deal with it at the end of the day, why not just let the state handle it?
Yeah.
And although I'm quite sure President Obama's intentions were not malicious in that, he was just trying to do what he felt was right. But that put a divide because it undermined the state when he did that.
Yeah.
Because it hampered what they could do. Because if they did something else, they went against the president.
Yeah. So, I mean, and going through some of the news today, one of the biggest misinformations that I've been hearing, you listen to it with the Amy Barrett hearings that are going on in the media, and even in the debates, and even some of the things you hear online, is the Republicans and President Trump want to take away your pre-existing conditions. They want to make sure that pre-existing conditions are not covered. They want to lose. So 20 million people will lose insurance, and so many will be under.
It was 162 million, one said, but it's only 8 million.
Right.
It's only 8 million.
But every single conservative and even the president have said, we are not wanting to take away anyone's pre-existing conditions. We just want the Affordable Care Act to be better.
So Coach, I'll say this is when I listen to them talk about this, is I think of, we say in the Army, you have a 300-meter target and you have a 5-meter target. And you got to shoot the 5-meter target so you can eventually get the 300-meter target. But the 5-meter target, once it's done, it's done. It's over with. Right now, or you put the horses with blinders.
Yeah.
And right now what I see is we can only look at 2 cases. I'm sorry, that judge is going to handle thousands of cases. Not 2 cases, thousands. And every judge that gets in there, no matter who puts them in there, they vote accordingly how they feel. Kavanaugh and Gorsuch voted against what the president thought that they would vote on a case. You know what? Because they're judges and they evaluate everything and they play it against the Constitution.
And then that's what they want. They want to look at the Constitution and go, okay, is this what the Constitution says? Is this how we're supposed to interpret the law? Stare decisis and all this after the fact. This is how we rule. It's not like, you know what do you think the president wants to do on this one? That's not the way the judicial branch works. It's not the way it was even set up. That's why they have lifetime tenure. That's why they're a separate body. That's why they have checks and balances. So they can do their job and look at the Constitution and any precedents that's set forth after that and go, this is what the Constitution says we have to do.
Not every 5-meter target is a Chicken Little story the sky is falling. Anyway, so I think we beat this down a little bit here, Coach. And I think misinformation is a root of a lot of evil, but I think disinformation is definitely the purest form of evil from the media.
I think there's only one good misinformation. It's when you fake a really good handoff. And you run a deep pass, and he's wide open.
Now,
that's really good misinformation.
If we talk truth strength, disinformation.
Exactly.
Got it. I got it. If we talk our capabilities to the enemy, I got it. As long as we're doing disinformation, got it. But for political reasons, hey, we're America. We're all on the same side. Let's get out of this different sides.
Starting to feel like we have 2 countries, brother.
Yeah. So, hey, we want to hear your thoughts on disinformation and misinformation. So stay tuned to us as you stay tuned to society from the coach.
And from the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.